But I wanted to draw your attention to that list because it's a reminder that we have been on this journey together. Rarely has a community invested in itself as we have done, and has there ever been a community more united and more inclusive in determining its direction. As for MAPS 3, now the real work begins. Like everything else to this point, the citizens are going to have a big role. Currently, the council and I are working toward the composition of the Citizens Advisory Board. We have had hundreds of people apply, and that type of interest is unprecedented at City Hall. I anticipate that we'll be making some announcements in the next steps very soon. Remember, the funding for MAPS 3 begins on April 1st and runs till the end of 2017. We'll be working on the advisory board, on the order of the projects. Based on the history of the previous MAPS projects, MAPS and MAPS for Kids, I would anticipate that the final MAPS 3 project would be completed somewhere around 2021. It'll be here before we know it. 2009 was the year we will remember as the culmination of a series of public commitments, the execution of which will continue to roll out over the next decade, transforming our city with a speed that few, if any, American cities have ever seen. If you take stock of the upcoming investments that our cities have committed to, it's a staggering list. Now consider, some of this is just around the corner, some of it's a little ways off, but all of this that I'm about to tell you about is going to happen in the next 10 years, the next 10. First of all, the Oklahoma Department of Transportation is working with us to complete the massive relocation of Interstate 40. It'll move 5 blocks to the south, and to complement that progress, we will be building a brand new boulevard that will take the place of the I-40 alignment and a stunning pedestrian bridge to cross over the new interstate and connect the 2 segments of the park. We will also finish up the 73 school projects that represent MAPS for Kids. As I mentioned, 35 of those projects are now in design and about to start construction. That will include a new downtown elementary school and 5 high schools. On top of that, we'll continue to work with the school board on building the projects of the 2007 school bond issue, and that includes those 47 gymnasiums that I mentioned. We will complete the upgrade of our sports arena, which should extend the Ford Center's life throughout this decade and beyond. We will also be completing the NBA practice facility, which we think ensures our major league status. And in just a few months, I mean, this is just around the corner when it warms up, we're going to start Project 180. This is a 3-year initiative that's going to redesign our downtown streets to be more beautiful and more pedestrian friendly. And it's also going to transform the myriad botanical gardens into an even more vibrant public space. We will complete the projects included in the 2007 bond issue. Projects that include our city streets, our parks. We're going to be building libraries. We're going to be renovating our police station. We're building new fire stations. And all of that merely sets the stage for MAPS 3. We'll be building a downtown streetcar system and a downtown transit center. We'll be building a modern urban park that will front the new boulevard and extend all the way to the river. And on the river, we'll have constructed the finest venue in the world for Olympic canoe, kayak, and rowing sports. 10 years from now, when we gather for lunch to hear the mayor speak, we won't be here. We'll have a new convention center, hopefully. And one of the exciting aspects to all of the things that I just discussed, all of those aspects that are coming in the next 10 years, you're going to be able to see them all when you stand atop Devon's 850-foot skyscraper. These are not just ideas, these are funded projects, all approved and funded without any increase from the current level of taxation. These projects used to be more vision than reality. Now they're more reality than vision. And I have said this before, but you'll probably hear me say it multiple times. The last 10 years of this city's history have been incredible, but they will not equal the next 10 years. This is our future. This is an incredible time to be in Oklahoma City, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's also going to require a lot of hard work. It's going to require community oversight. But I think we're going to get there, and I'm so excited to be working with the city staff on executing all of these projects. In June, in this very building, you heard David mention earlier that we're going to be hosting the nation's mayors. 77th meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Oklahoma for the very first time. And you have probably heard me talk about this and will more, but the 2010 event is very, very unpopular. It's very, very important that the 2010 annual meeting go well for Oklahoma City. This is probably the most important political gathering the state has ever hosted. It's going to require an enormous effort, the hospitality that we're famous for, and it's going to attract more than just mayors. There'll be congressional leaders, there'll be cabinet and other White House officials, there'll probably be governors here, perhaps world leaders, and even though parts of our city are probably going to look like one massive construction zone, the timing is really perfect because probably more than any audience, mayors appreciate construction cranes. They love big holes in the ground. Mayors recognize progress. And although each mayor is going to have pride in his or her individual city, I also know there is great interest in our story. And thank you for giving me such a great story to tell. There's a few other items I want to discuss today. Next month, our community will break ground on the new Westtown Resource Center. This project is the result of years of consensus building to determine the best way to deal with and care for our homeless population and others that need temporary shelter and assistance in getting back on their feet. We will be consolidating a number of the resources that are currently spread out around the city. This is an important project that shows even as we dream big, we have to remember that we have a responsibility to take care of others. This April, we will mark the 15th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. The National Memorial and the museum have become national icons. And as we move farther away in time from that terrible day, the memorial and the museum become more and more relevant as a teaching tool for our world's future as much as our city's past. Regarding transportation, obviously the streetcar project in MAPS 3 is significant, but that's really just part of the story. It's really just the beginning, because currently the city is engaged in a study on our transit hub needs. We are pursuing federal grants to supplement the commuter rail funding that was included in MAPS 3. Also, last summer, through the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, we began a series of meetings with other municipalities in the region to get a serious regional conversation going about public transit. Let's bring the counties together, let's bring the cities together. Now, the downtown streetcar is certainly a vital part of our public transit future, but going forward, transit needs to transition from being a city responsibility to a regional responsibility. We're working with the county governments and certainly the leaders of our surrounding communities to determine the appropriate structure of a regional transit authority. As you know, our metro is designed really well for cars. We don't have much traffic congestion. But we also know that it may not always be that way. And for that and a lot of other reasons, including air quality and the ever-aging of our population, we need to be better prepared for the public transit needs of the future. We also need to begin establishing a track record of success in regional cooperation. And I know when it comes to regional cooperation, we have some wonderful examples in the economic development side sitting in the room today. We need to see our municipalities continue to follow that example, especially when it comes to transit. Another great example of an area that requires regional partnerships is public safety. And I have talked about this in this forum before. Among the public safety issues our region is going to address later this year is the county jail. We talk a lot about trying to fix it, but in that conversation, do not ignore a fundamental issue that needs to be addressed. We as Americans and as Oklahomans are not adequately dealing with our mental health issues. Now, it's not just here, it's happening all over the country. But we can't be waiting for someone else to solve our problems for us. We need to be in front and solving it. I also want to talk briefly about clean air and fresh water. These have traditionally been and remain Oklahoma City success stories. Relative to other cities in the nation, the quality of our air remains high. I will warn you, though, that the federal government is about to change the standards, which in the near term is going to make it next to impossible for cities our size to avoid making some level of changes. But we should be able to deal with what's going to be required, again, working regionally with the other cities.